Hey everybody, my name is Rick Thiessen, and welcome to another episode of Hey Pastor, have you seen this? I'm the senior pastor of Allen Creek Community Church, and this blog is where basically you're going to get a Christian pastor's Christian worldview take on some internet content that our band of internet explorers have drummed up to just kind of get something that's interesting that relates to God, the Bible, Christianity, and just kind of see what would be a Christian worldview take on this particular issue. So just so you know, this video that's right in front of me, I have not seen it yet, so it's all a cold take on my part, but you're going to get my read on whatever this content is. And so you'll get that response. If you have something you want me to respond to, just send it to social@ac3.org, and we'll be happy to comment on that. All right, so let's take a look at this content.
Now, there are many people out there today that claim to be Christians, and they say, no, we're not in the law anymore. We're over here after the death of Jesus. But they think that we're only in Jesus' ministry, and that's it. Well, that is not true. Jesus had with him many apostles, but there was one chosen out of due time named Paul that Jesus Christ chose for a purpose, because here's Jesus' ministry, and here's Paul's ministry. Which one is for us? Well, many would say both. Hold on there. When Jesus showed up in his ministry, was not to come to save Gentiles. Jesus says he came only to Israel and see whether they'd accept him or not. Look at the very words of Jesus Christ himself. But he answered and said, I am not sent but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel. So this ministry of Jesus was for Jews, to accept him as Messiah or not. Now that is not the same message as today. There's a change in the book of Acts from Jews to Gentiles, from Peter and the early apostles to Paul. And that is the revelation of the gospel of salvation. Jesus Christ was a minister of the circumcision to confirm the promises made unto the fathers. So Paul says Jesus' ministry was for Jews to accept him as Messiah, but they didn't. So God chose me to now go and take the gospel message to the Gentiles. So if you want to be a true follower of Jesus, you have to come through this revelation given to Paul. See, if you're not trusting in the gospel of Paul, you're not saved. You aren't even a Christian. Now, there are many people out there today that claim.
Okay, this is a hot take. I don't know if I would say it like this at all, because I don't think it's necessarily helpful. I think the way this person is describing the difference between Jesus' introduction of the kingdom of God and the invitation to it, and Paul's ministry, is creating an artificial war between them, as if Jesus came for Israel and that didn't work. Like he was surprised or shocked by that. And then Paul takes up the banner and says, well, let's take this message to the Gentiles. And it's a sort of something of a different gospel. And then to look into the Jesus invitation to the kingdom and Paul's invitation to the kingdom as if they're separate. And if you accept Jesus' invitation, you've somehow repudiated Paul's invitation. I just don't like this at all. So does Jesus have missional specificity? Yes, he does. So that means that his mission is to the lost sheep of Israel. And he's very clear about that. And he tells his apostles that they're not to go to the Gentiles. But the consistency between what Jesus is offering as the invitation to the kingdom and what Paul will offer in the next couple decades as an invitation to the kingdom, the consistency is baked in to the ministry of Jesus. When Jesus ministers to Gentiles, he is open with them. He's affirming of them. The Roman centurion, and he says, this guy has faith unlike the faith that I've seen anywhere in Israel. So he holds up a Gentile as an example of the kind of faith that he's going to want in the kingdom of God. When he's with the Syrian woman, he's blown away by her faith. She says, surely the dogs get the crumbs from the table. And then he says, oh, woman, your faith is great. And he heals her. So his interactions with Gentiles, though he and his apostles during his time on earth he is specifically going to the lost sheep of Israel. And yes, he's asking them to accept him as Messiah, and they don't, and that's also very true. Nevertheless, Jesus is already anticipating the international flavor of this ministry. At the end, of course, he says, go to all nations. And then when he speaks in John, I think it's chapter 16 or whatever, he's talking to the apostles about he has sheep that are not of this pen. And I think most scholars would say this is an obvious reference to the Gentile mission. So Jesus is already anticipating the Gentile mission. So if we accept this, then we don't have this arbitrary wall or warfare between the gospel of Jesus and the gospel of Paul. I think that's just very unhelpful. I think we need to see that this is the same gospel. It is the gospel of Jesus to which Paul is pointing. He simply just has a different audience. And he doesn't have that audience because God didn't anticipate re-enfolding the Gentiles into the kingdom of God, because Jesus didn't foresee it. as if somehow the mission to the Gentiles or the Jews failed. Yes, it's connected. Paul says, because the Jews didn't accept, the ungrafted branches will be grafted in, the wild branches will be grafted in, Romans chapter 11. But again, all of this, I think, to speak of it like this, that true Christianity is the gospel of Paul. And if you don't accept the gospel of Paul, you're not a real Christian. And if you only accept the gospel of Jesus, I just don't think this is helpful. People are all saved the same way, by God's grace through faith, and that includes Abraham and every faithful person throughout Jewish history and on into the church age. And Jesus' death and resurrection is the means by which we're saved for everybody, whether Jew or Gentile, for God is no respecter of persons, as Paul will say. So I think that's my take on this way of framing it. I don't know if I particularly like it. So yeah, if you've got something else you'd like to get my take on, something that relates to God, the Bible, Christianity, or some element of philosophy or religion, send it to social@ac3.org, and we'll be more than happy to talk about it here on Hey Pastor, Have You Seen This?